Thank you for joining Winter Streak Workshop today. We are excited to have you. I've recognized so many of you from the previous 3 workshops. We're happy to have you back. As you all know, if you've been here before, if you could please put your first and last name in the chat. That's how we will track attendance and your entry for the prize basket. So if you could, again, first and last name in the chat. I will put a reminder in the chat in case you missed that. So again, welcome to Winter Streak. Give me just a moment to share my screen. There we go. Thanks. Sorry about that. Having some technical difficulties on my end. Again, welcome to
Today for our Winter Streak activity, we're going to be transforming some of our favorite comfort foods and also reviewing a little bit about nutrition basics to start. So Kim, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so like I said, we're transforming comfort foods today. So my name is Emma Sharp. I'm a registered dietitian licensed in Pennsylvania, and I work at the Capital Blue Cross brand new store opening here, hopefully the end of spring, right across the street from where we are today at the Apple Medical Center. So at that location, as well as our location in Chambersburg, Enola, the Lehigh Valley, and Saucon Valley, we have our retail services for any insurance questions, things like that, as well as health and wellness services. Next slide. Okay, so like I said, we're going to just briefly go over some basic nutrition. Like what I like to say is balanced basics, so how we can have a balanced diet, followed by 2 recipes for our food demo today. Next slide. All right, so you may have seen this image before. This is something I love to show clients and keep in mind when we're looking at building a healthy diet. So this is our My Plate image from the Dietary Guidelines for Americans. And it gives us a reminder of what kind of food groups to include for our meals. So we have our fruits and our veggies making up half of our plate there, our nutrient dense, lower calorie, super healthy foods, as well as our grains. Ideally, we want half of our grains to be whole. We have our protein sources there in the other corner, and then our dairy or dairy substitutes if you have allergies or different kinds of concerns there. So we can go ahead to the next slide then. And then I also like to remind people to use balance in your snacks. So the formulas here shown on that slide include combining 2 of our main, what we call macronutrients. So our nutrients we need in the highest amount. So combining our carbohydrates with a protein or fat, or fat and a protein. Examples being like hummus with some veggies for a good source of protein, as well as some healthy carbohydrates, or even toast with peanut butter for a carbohydrate and fat. All right, next slide. All right, so as I mentioned before, here's just a little bit about the services we offer through Capital Blue while we're in collaboration with WellSpan Health today. We wanted to give you guys a little bit of information about what we offer. So like I said, I'm a registered dietitian and I'm in charge of our wellness side of things at our stores in York and Chambersburg. We also have health coaches and dietitians at our other locations. So we offer nutrition coaching as well as health coaching, both for members and non-members. You'll see there's a difference in price a little bit there as shown on the slide. We also offer fitness classes via Zoom right now due to COVID, as well as presentations such as these. And today we're doing in collaboration again with WellSpan Health. So we're thanking them for allowing us to have this space and the availability to do this demo here today. We also do biometric services, so things like your blood pressure. We do a lipid panel fully just by a finger prick test, so just a little quick pinch there, as well as a derma scan, BMI, and body fat percentage. So all of those services are available at our stores. All right, next slide. All right, now's the fun part. So we're going to get into our food demo now. So today we're going to be making a zucchini lasagna followed by a pumpkin roll. So as I said, we're going to use these recipes and not completely change them, but do a little bit tweaks here and there to make them a bit more healthy, but still have that comfort food feel. So we're going to have all of our ingredients out here today. I have prepped a little bit ahead of time just for time's sake. So I have our ingredients measured out as well as our whole wheat noodles I have already cooked just so we have those ready to go. So first thing here, we're going to take our zucchini and our parsley and prepare our veggies. So for our modification here, we're replacing half of our noodles with zucchini, which is then going to increase the fiber, decrease the calories, as well as provide some veggies to our lasagna here. So to do this, we're going to use our knife skills and we're going to cut off our ends. You can set these to the side. And then so we're going to try to make them look a little bit like noodles. So to do that, we're going to want to take this nice rounded zucchini and kind of make it a little bit more square. So some of these pieces you can keep for a snack. Going back to that hummus and veggies example, you can use these and make them little slices here for your dipping for your sauces for snack time. So we're going to cut off 4 sides here. Again, trying to make it kind of a rectangular shape. And the amount of noodles you'll get from a zucchini depends on the size we have here. So today we have a nice, decently large size zucchini. So I'm going to try to get 6 slices out of here as our goal. So the key here, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to try to get them as even as possible so then they'll cook thoroughly together. I'm just going to go ahead here and slice. So this is what one of our noodles will look like. You'll see it's kind of flat like our traditional pasta lasagna noodles. You can also use a mandolin here, which is a little bit easier. But again, it's a good chance to practice your knife skills a little bit. So now we have 3. And this is a little bit of a larger zucchini, so it's okay if we don't quite get 6 from this one. If you're using a smaller one, I would try to get 6 or even use 2 smaller ones and get 3 from each. All right, so now we have our nice lasagna noodles. So I'm going to take these and set them to the side with our whole wheat noodles. You notice we'll also replace our traditional pasta lasagna noodles with whole wheat. Again, that's going to be increasing our fiber, satisfying that goal of half of our grains being whole. And now we're going to use some fresh parsley, which has been washed and prepared ahead of time. And just chop it nice and finely. Now we're going to measure out 2 tablespoons worth of this. Pick off a little bit here. And you can also use dried parsley if you don't have fresh available, but I do like to use fresh just for the flavor profile. And again, a good source of those healthy greens. So we're going to just quickly give this a little rough chop. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. We're going to take our bowl that we're going to mix our lasagna filling in. We're going to measure out using our tablespoon here, roughly 2 tablespoons of this parsley. I like to be a little generous here because again, I like my greens and this is going to add a good amount of that flavor for us too. So we can go ahead and set the rest of that to the side. Alrighty. So next we're going to make the rest of our filling. So we talked about the modifications so far being adding some zucchini noodles, switching out the whole wheat for our regular noodles. And then we're also using low fat and low sodium cheeses and regatta cheese as well. So that is something that might be available at your grocery store. I know when I was shopping for low sodium options, closest I found was 150 milligrams, which technically 140 is going to be our low sodium goal there. But if it's not perfect, we're still getting that lower option there is going to be helpful for our heart health. We're also using Prego brand lower sodium sauce. So again, going to be healthy for our heart, having that less than 140 milligrams per serving there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put half of our cheese. So for this total recipe, we're using 2 cups of mozzarella. So we're going to be adding just half of this here. The rest will be going on top when we bake our lasagna. And then here we have as well a low fat regatta cheese. So for this, we're going to be using 30 ounces. Just to the side. And I've also preheated our oven already. So when you're making this at home, you're going to want to preheat your oven to 350. And we're going to also be using a 13 by 9 inch pan for this recipe. So we can start kind of breaking this regatta up a little bit. Next, we're going to crack our 2 eggs into here. Trying not to get any shells, of course. All right. So now we got all of our fixings for our filling. We're going to give that a good whisk. You can also use a mixer here if you'd like. And if you also want to add any other spices here, you could add some like Italian seasoning, some oregano. We're keeping it simple here today, but you're welcome to add any spices. And they should not add any sodium to it as long as you're using herbs or things of that nature. So it doesn't take too long, you'll see, to mix this up real nicely using our whisk. So we're going to set that aside, and now we're going to build our lasagna. So I'm going to grab our 13 by 9 inch pan. We're going to open up one of our sauces here. We're going to just spread a little bit here for the bottom to prevent it from sticking. This will serve as kind of our first layer, this first little bit of sauce. Use our spatula, spread it around a little bit, even just shimmy the pan a little bit too. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's what's fun about cooking. You can kind of be creative with how you prefer your food. Okay, so first we're going to take our noodles over here. Pardon the little plastics down there. But first we're going to make our base with our hearty whole wheat noodles. So I'm putting it in lengthwise here. I'm going to start with a base of 3. So by making these modifications, we decreased our saturated fat. We went from 8 to 4.5 grams. We also decreased our total fat. So we went from 15 to 8 grams, as well as our calories and sodium. So those are some great nutrition modifications we made just by these simple, not completely changing the whole recipe modifications. Okay, next here, we're going to add a little bit more of our sauce to our lasagna. And you can measure this too. I just kind of like to eyeball it. Spread it across there. And next, we're going to take our zucchini noodles. So you'll notice if I put it lengthways, like we did with our lasagna, it's not quite going to fit. So we're actually going to take the other option here, put it sideways. And depending on how much zucchini you have, you can do as many layers of this as you'd like. For today's purposes, I'm just doing 1 layer of zucchini and 2 layers of pasta noodles. So again, depending on your zucchini, it's going to be a little bit different shape, most likely. But next, we're going to put our ricotta cheese. Use our spoon here. And your spatula is definitely going to be your friend for this recipe. So you'll notice we'll use him a lot today. You can also use the back of your spoon, whichever is easier for you. Making sure you get all those corners there. So that cheesiness is what we know and love about our lasagna, that comforting portion there. All right, and you guessed it, more sauce going on top here. It's going to be a little bit less than 2 cans worth. Of course, you can use more or less depending on your preference there. This is when things get a little bit messy. It's not going to be as perfect and pretty as these layers get combined a little bit here. But that's okay. It's going to taste the same. I'm going to go with our next level of our lasagna noodles here. Across. And you'll see some of mine broke apart a little bit, but that is totally okay. So we're going to whisk out of the way and put our final layer of this cheese. That to the side, get some room over here, and spread this over. So when cooking your pasta noodles, you're going to want to follow the instructions from the box you get. So for mine, they took about 10 minutes. They take a little bit longer than your traditional lasagna noodles just because they have that whole wheat. But again, we're getting added nutrition that way too. All right, so we're going to put the rest of our sauce. And open up another one here. Get it nice and even. Again, we want to try to get in those little nooks and crannies there to the best of our ability. And it's okay if a little bit of that white sauce peeks through, because next we're going to take the rest of our cheese and garnish it on top. So depending on how much cheese you used in your cheese regatta blend layer, you might have a little bit more on top, or you can even throw a bit more in there than we call for in the recipe. That's totally okay. So next, what we're going to do here is we are going to wrap it in foil, cook it in the oven for 40 minutes, again at that 350 degrees. Now, for sake of time, we're not going to do that today. So I'm going to set this to the side. And with TV magic, we're going to show you what it's going to look like. So this I made ahead of time. You can see here we got a nice layer of this cheese melted. It's dense and going to be very comforting, filling, but also nutritious. So here's our lasagna, and our first recipe is complete. Alrighty. I'm just going to move a couple things out of the way here when we get ready for our next recipe. Now, I realize pumpkin is not really in season right now, but if you're like me, you're a pumpkin fan. Way. So I luckily have all of our ingredients over here prepped on this nice cart. You might not have seen that hidden there, but we are ready to go for our pumpkin roll as well. So the first thing we're going to want to do for this is set our oven to 375. So just a slight bit higher than we did our lasagna at. And we're going to be using for this a 15 by 10 inch pan. It's behind me. So this is what it's going to look like. It's also called a jelly roll pan. So it's something that we can use to get this nice shape here that we're going to want for our roll. So we're going to imagine that's greased, and that's what you're going to be using for your batter. So now it's time to get mixing here. So I'm going to bring over my ingredients. Again, I pre-measured a lot of this for sake of time. So what we got here, we're going to first mix our dry ingredients. We got flour here. We got a 3/4 cup flour. We got our pumpkin pie spice. You can also use nutmeg, clove, and cinnamon if you don't have the spice itself. Baking soda and baking powder, as well as a pinch of salt, which I already added. So for this, we're just going to give it a little mix. And now we can mix our wet ingredients together. So again, we have 2 eggs going in here. Back to testing my egg cracking skills. Set this to the side. All right. We're going to take our second whisk we got here and give these a little bit of a whisk just to start. Doesn't have to be completely whisked together, but just a little bit. That'll help us when we add the rest of our ingredients. So next we're going to add our pumpkin puree. I have already measured out as well. This is just canned plain pumpkin. It's not sweetened, not spiced at all, just plain. Start adding that a little bit together. Right. And we're also going to be using Greek yogurt here. Now, Greek yogurt's lower in fat and higher in protein, so we like this as an alternative to other options. For this recipe, it called for 8 ounces of cream cheese, but instead we're going to be using Greek yogurt for part of that. So adding 1/4 here. We're adding some sugar here as well, which you might be surprised to see in a healthy eating cooking demo, but again, we're not keeping it completely modified, just a little bit here. So we're going to mix this together and then add our dry ingredients to it as well. So this is going to make our batter. You can also use a mixer for this. At this point, it'll start smelling really good too. All right. And when it's mixed a little bit to the best of your ability, you're going to put it in our pan here. We're going to use our spatula again, spread it out nice and evenly. And the key here too is evenness. So it doesn't have to be completely covering the pan, doesn't have to be perfect. In the end, it'll shape out to be the way we need it to be anyway. So by making these modifications here, we decreased our calories again, as well as our saturated fat. We also decreased our sugar, and we added protein from the Greek yogurt. So lots of good nutrition while still eating things that taste good, because that's what's the most important, honestly. All right. I'm going to move this aside now. And again, with TV magic, we already have our pumpkin roll ready to go. So after you get it out of the oven, you're going to want to wrap it on a towel that you have added some of our powdered sugar alternative to. So today we're using Swerve, which is a sugar alcohol alternative. It has no calories and no sugar to it, which is how we got our sugar to be in a better range there too. So you're going to wrap it in a towel like this and have it cool for an hour. Hit that aside. And while that's in the oven and while that's cooling, doesn't matter whichever one you like to do, whatever time, you're going to make your filling as well. So we're going to be using 4 ounces of cream cheese, using low-fat cream cheese again to try to decrease our fat content. And we're going to be using the rest of our yogurt, so 1 cup of yogurt. Put that in. And we're going to add a little bit more pumpkin pie spice. So the recipe calls for about a half teaspoon. What I'm going to do here is just give it a little sprinkle, however much you'd like to add. And then finally, we're going to add our powdered sugar alternative here. So imagining we already had our towel laid out, we would have added 3 of our tablespoons of powdered sugar to that, followed by the rest of our 6 tablespoons into our filling. 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We're gonna put this to our KitchenAid here and give it a good little stir. This will help break the cream cheese up. All right, I see that we're out of time here. So, 5 minutes up, my bad. So we're gonna unwrap our little roll here, undo my rubber bands. I let this cool overnight, which is gonna make it even easier for us, but you'll see here when I unroll this, it's gonna actually kind of already have that shape to it already. So it makes it a lot easier to roll it back up. And here you can see the powdered sugar or the powdered sugar alternative we used was on the bottom of that towel as well. So using our spatula again, make sure it's mixed. You can see the cream cheese is the part that takes the longest to mix together here. And it will help if you thaw your cream cheese as well to get that going a little bit faster. Okay, so that should be good for our purposes here today. So we're going to remove it from our handy KitchenAid mixer here. And you'll notice I'm using a metal spatula here, which will help us get a little bit more of an even coating. We're going to plop our lovely filling here with that Greek yogurt sugar alternative and our pumpkin pie space as well into the center here. Give it a nice even spread. You'll notice my cream cheese isn't quite perfect, but I'm just gonna let that happen. It doesn't have to be completely over the roll. It'll get in there regardless once you roll it up at the end. So if you'd like, you can keep your towel here. I think it makes it a little bit easier. And you're going to take your roll, just roll it back up. It's okay if it gets a little bit messy here too. That's expected. All right, and you can take some of this remaining powdered sugar, give it a little bit of a dusting. And then you can see on the side here, we got our nice pumpkin roll. When we take a slice here, actually, I'll get a knife. Off. Just going to get a little slice, just to let you guys see what it looked like on the inside. So you can see we got our nice layer there, nice little dessert, not too hefty, but also still going to have that comfort feeling. So thank you guys so much for joining me today. That's all I have for you for our food demo. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. Kim is on there monitoring our chat today. If not, feel free to connect with us through WellSpan Health or from Capital Blue Cross Connect. Again, my name is Emma Sharp, and I thank you again for coming to this food demo.
Yep. And Emma, do you have time to stick around and answer a couple of questions? I think we're having some technical difficulties because you cannot hear me. Sorry.
Kim, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you?
Okay, so Emma, we have a couple of questions that are in the chat.
Okay.
I'm going to read them for you. Does the zucchini soften? I would have liked to have seen a piece when you cut it. So does it
Okay.
soften?
Yeah, so the one thing with zucchini that it's actually a good question to note here, our zucchini does have higher water content than our noodles would. So I often keep it in our oven a little bit longer. So like I said, you're going to cook that for 40 minutes covered, and then we're going to take the foil off to cook it for another 10 minutes. I usually do that about 15 minutes rather than 10, just because of that water content, and that'll help evaporate it off. So it does soften a bit too. And again, it also depends on the size of your noodles, zucchini noodles, so to say, as well.
Okay, next question was, would low-fat, small curd cottage cheese be a low-salt alternative for the ricotta cheese? Not quite the same taste, but maybe more cost-effective.
Yeah, sure. You can definitely use that. And that's where you can take these recipes and kind of modify them to your own liking there. So again, we're looking on those labels to find a low sodium option is that 140, or ideally around that number. Like I said, some cheeses are about 150, so not quite there, but still better than alternatives, which might be a little bit higher there. So yeah, definitely looking for that 140 milligrams for that low sodium option, and looking for the low fat or fat reduced options there too will help with the fat content.
Any recommendations to have in place of the zucchini for a family member who doesn't eat it? Somebody mentioned maybe a gluten-free pasta could be used, but it may not be as low in calories.
Yeah, so you can definitely use, I like brown rice pasta for a gluten-free alternative. So that's something you could do, especially if you have an allergy or you might be celiac disease people in your family as well. But you could use whatever kind of veggies you like. If you don't want to do a whole layer of noodles, you could do a layer of spinach even to add some of that same good green nutrients there. We want to make sure we're eating a variety of colors when it comes to our fruits and veggies. So getting those greens is always a good idea. Or whatever veggies your family likes. It's really up to your choosing there. You can be creative.
Okay, the recipe cards will go out to everybody that was registered. And the question becomes, is there a healthier option than sugar for the batter on the pumpkin roll?
Yeah, so like I said, we didn't completely get rid of the sugar for this recipe to kind of keep that similar taste profile, but you can use the Swerve for the powdered sugar. They also have cane sugar. This is a powdered form of this. You can also use monk fruit sugar, or if you want to use coconut palm sugar, that one's going to still be a bit closer to our traditional cane sugar, but it has a little bit more of that fiber content. So those are some options. And you can also, give it a taste, see how you feel with the amount of sugar and decrease it a little bit too, or do half and half. There's many different ways you can take it.
And then the recommendation was that when they make pumpkin roll, line the cookie sheet with parchment paper and helps to keep it from sticking to make the transfer easier.
Yes, good idea. Any more questions?
So I believe that was the last questions that I'm seeing. Like I said, the recipe cards will go out to everybody. And Kim, I think anything else?
Yes, if you want to check out any additional Winter Streak resources, you can go to winterstreak.org. I would also like to give a very warm and heartfelt thank you to Emma for doing this amazing cooking demo. And I'm excited to get feedback on from folks that try the recipes using the modifications that Emma showed us today. So thank you, Emma.
No problem.
And
All
with
right, well,
that,
thank you everyone so much for coming today.
thank you
Thank
all,
you.
and we will get the recording out to everyone soon.
Thank you.